Hello, everybody. This is Mike Van Meter, and welcome to the Recovery is Possible podcast. And I want to thank everybody for joining me. You can reach us at our Facebook site, which is also called Recovery is Possible, or our website, which is vanmeterwellnesssolutions.com. And this podcast exists to educate the public about addiction, remove the stigmas associated with addiction, and offer help and support to those suffering from addiction. And also, today's episode is going to be brought to you by FHE Health, which is a substance abuse and mental health treatment center specializing in treatment for the first responders' needs, including PTSD, anxiety, and substance use. Take the first steps to a better life today by visiting FHEHealth.com. So today what I want to talk about is something I get asked quite a bit about, and that is, am I an alcoholic? Do I need to go to treatment? Oftentimes it's from family or friends, and they are asked, about their spouse's drinking. They wonder about their spouse's drinking or loved one's drinking, and they want to know, do they need to get help? Is this a problem? Is this just a phase? Or is this something that they need to have treatment for? And then oftentimes what follows up after that is, what is treatment? What does that mean? Where do I go? Where do you recommend? And so on and so forth. And those are all very, very good questions. And I get asked it quite a bit, and I know that we've covered it on this program before, but I think it's something that we have to keep visiting because, I'm involved in this world and immersed in the recovery world. So sometimes I sit back and I think that everybody knows and understands the things that I'm around. And the fact is that we don't. And we as a society are moving, unfortunately, more in the direction of where there are certain substances that are, being legalized and normalized. And we're really kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth in society today, and that is that, A, we recognize that addiction's a bad thing, but B, let's let everybody do what they want to do, and really kind of normalize a lot of the behaviors that are out there. So let's discuss this a little bit, because what we're concerned about that are people that have a problem with a particular substance, and I'm talking primarily about alcohol, but everything I'm going to talk about today is not limited to alcohol, because what's important for people to understand is that addiction is addiction is addiction. You can be addicted to a lot of different things. You can be addicted to work. You can be addicted to sex, to gambling, to food, to exercising too much, all kinds of things. And so, in some of the things I just mentioned, people think of in this society as being good things, don't they? Like, for example, exercise. Well, exercise is a good thing. And I was asked that once. I was asked, well, Mike, you talk about the fact that we need to exercise more, and I want to exercise more, then what's the problem? Because there are a few people that I've questioned their exercise schedule, and they think that that's a healthy thing. Well, exercise is healthy. You should be doing it, particularly in early recovery. But what are we talking about? What we're talking about is if your behavior, to include exercise, if your behavior is causing problems within your primary relationships, your primary responsibilities at work with your loved ones, then it's an issue. And that's really the simple litmus test here. I mean, without getting scientific, without getting clinical, without going too deep, some of these questions are things that you can just ask yourself, and they're very simple. Is what I'm doing causing a problem in my life? Is it causing a problem with the people that I care about? Is it causing problems with my work? Am I not engaging in responsibilities that I have in my life because of the behavior that I'm engaged in, whether it be a substance or just a behavior like exercise? And that's really the litmus test. If the answer to that is yes, then you've got a problem. For example, let's say I have a commitment to go to my kid's birthday party. And I don't go to my kid's birthday party because I've got to get an 8-mile run in today. My workout schedule says I've got to do an 8-mile run today. And it was planned for a specific time, and my child's birthday party is also scheduled for that time. If I choose to go do that 8-mile run as opposed to going to the kid's birthday party, well, then that's a problem. Because my question to somebody like that is, are you being paid to do that? Are you a professional athlete? Is your income dependent upon your ability to run? And if the answer to that is no, well, then you might want to look at that and ask yourself whether it's a problem or not. And I know people like that. I know people that have no social life because of workout schedules that they have. And so you might want to take a look at that and ask yourself if that's a problem. So now, but for today's example, what I want to walk through, because I want to walk through a test that has some questions, and we'll discuss these things. It's going to be based around alcohol, because many of the people that come to me, that's their presenting issue is alcohol. So let's just talk about that. Well, I always get asked, Mike, is this a problem? Am I an alcoholic? Or is my husband, is my wife, is my boyfriend, girlfriend an alcoholic? And I've covered this before, but the simple answer to that is I can't answer that for you. But I am going to say that it's interesting that you came to me with the question, because if you came to me with the question, that means that that substance, in this case alcohol, is a problem for you, and it is a problem for the person that you're talking about. Otherwise, we would not even be having that conversation. And I know that that's a very simple answer, and it's not really an answer, but it is an answer at the same time. Ask yourself, do normal social drinkers have that conversation? If you were a normal social drinker, in other words, if you were somebody that had one drink a day or less, or drank a few times a year, would you go to somebody like me and ask that question? Would you go to your friends and your family and ask if they have noticed irregularities in your loved one's drinking? Would you even ask the question? And my stance on this is, if it's a problem for you, then it's a problem. You don't need to come to me for my advice on that. The fact that it's a problem for you, by definition, makes it a problem. So just ask yourself that. And if your loved one has tried to stop and can't stop, or they won't stop, even though it's a problem for you or other people in the family and children, then you have to say, well, then it's likely a problem, because they are willing to take this substance or this activity over giving it up for people that deeply care about them. And so I hope that makes sense right there. That's kind of the litmus test. And when I go through the test, and we are going to talk about the MAST test today, which is a simple questionnaire that can be taken, and it's very common for people to take this questionnaire when they go into treatment centers. I want you to listen to some of the questions that are asked in the MAST questionnaire, because I think that it really is descriptive of what we're talking about. It's very simple, and if you're not familiar with the MAST test, it's called the Michigan Alcohol Screening Test, or the MAST. And it was developed in 1971, and I like it, and it's also one of the oldest and most accurate alcohol screening tests available. And it's pretty effective in identifying dependent drinkers with up to 98% accuracy. And I like the questions on this thing, and you'll see where a lot of these questions parallel some of the things that I just talked about. So listen to some of the questions. So the first one is, do you feel you are a normal drinker? All right. So this is the person, if they were coming into a treatment center or seeing a counselor, they're asking them, do you think that you are a normal drinker? And oftentimes, if people are being honest with themselves, the answer to that is going to be no. Well, how about this? Have you ever awakened in the morning after drinking the night before and found that you could not remember a part of the evening? So that would be a partial blackout. You do understand that normal social drinkers don't have blackouts at all. So if you are experiencing this, then this means that you overdid it, and the chances are you're doing this on a regular basis. So does any near relative or close friend ever worry or complain about your drinking? Again, all of these questions are through the prism of, do normal social drinkers even have these questions asked of them or ask themselves? Now, the next one is really the censure for people. And I want you to hear from me some of the responses that I get from people, and that is this: Can you stop drinking without difficulty after one or two drinks? Well, we know the answer to that. We know that people with a drinking problem do not have an off switch. I did not have an off switch. I had an on switch. And there's a biochemical and a physiological reason why that is. And I've talked about that before. And that is that as alcohol breaks down in the body, it goes from alcohol and then eventually leaves the body as carbon dioxide. But before you get there, there's a middle process, and it's known as acetaldehyde. It's a state that alcohol is in. And for the normal social drinkers out there, if you're genetically wired correctly, your body will cause you to stop drinking at that point because alcohol is toxic. It's toxic in your system. And if you're wired normally, your body should shut down and purge the alcohol in your body because it is a toxin to your system. But for those that have the genetic predisposition to addiction, and in this case alcoholism, it's the exact opposite. Your body tells your brain that this is a good thing and that you need more. And the more, the better. And that's why there's a common phrase in 12-step groups, and that is that it's not the 100th drink that kills you, it's the first drink that kills you. Because once you pick up that first drink, you don't know where you're going to stop. And that's a sign that you have that genetic predisposition. Do you ever feel guilty about your drinking? Okay? Again, we're not talking about once or twice in your life, on a New Year's Eve. We're talking about on just as a general rule. Do you feel guilty about it? Do you feel guilty about the fact that you're not attending family obligations? Are you not going to the games? You're not going to the birthday parties? You're not doing the social events? You're not in the hobbies that you used to be? And does that make you feel guilty? So that's a good question. And I love the next one. Have you ever attended a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Now, I want you to listen to that question. It's not asking you if you are a member and you go on a regular basis. It's saying, have you ever attended a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting? The reason why that question is in there is because we all know, and if you're listening to me and you're someone that is struggling with this issue, you know this as well, that before you went to your first AA meeting, and I mean the first one, the fact is, you'd been thinking about it for quite some time. And if the truth were told, there were people around you that were thinking about it and maybe even told you that you should be going to an AA meeting. And we all know that by the time you go to an AA meeting, if there was something else you could have done that would have worked, you would have done it. Because AA meetings are like the last stop on the train ride. It's that last stop. And when you get to the point where you decide that you're going to go, it's been a thought for a long time. So if you pulled the trigger on it and you went to that first meeting, you have to ask yourself, do normal social drinkers do that? And the answer is no. Now, I will tell you that if you get into AA and you work it and you work the steps and you work the program and you do it thoroughly and you're honest with yourself, there's a very high success rate. Now, you're going to read a lot of literature that's going to tell you that meetings don't work, and that's not the case. The case is that people who don't work the program, it doesn't work for, but they are the issue. It's not the program that's the issue. They are the issue. So have you ever gotten into physical fights when drinking? That's a clue, because if we get to the point where we're having physical fights, particularly as adults, that's a very dangerous thing to do. We can not only get physically hurt or hurt someone else and get sued, but you can do jail time. And again, if that's something that you only do when you're drinking, then that's a good question to ask yourself. Has drinking ever created problems between you and a near relative or close friend? And if that's caused by drinking, then that's a good question. Has any family member or close friend gone to anyone for help about your drinking? I know that was the case with me. And this is another sign that what you are doing is affecting your personal relationships. That is a key marker, a key indicator that what you are doing is a problem and that it needs to be addressed. Have you ever lost friends because of your drinking? It's similar to the previous question that we had. Have you ever gotten into trouble at work because of drinking? Right? So we went from our social circles to our social obligations. Now we're talking about work in our professional life. Has your habit affected your professional performance. And if you're drinking heavily, if you're drinking alcoholically, your entire world is going to be affected by this. It's not just one or two areas. I love the term. When I say love it, I really actually hate the term. I'm saying this sarcastically. I hear people say to me all the time, particularly when they're new and coming to the program, they like to qualify their drinking. And they say, well, I'm a functional alcoholic. I hear that, and I hate that, because there's no such thing. If you are drinking excessively, it affects every aspect of your life. Every aspect. You can't pigeonhole it. You can't say, well, I'm functioning 100% at work. Now my family life's falling apart, my marriage is falling apart, but I'm 100% at work. No, you're not. You may think that, and you may get by with this for a while, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts, and that is that don't think for a minute that people you work with are not aware that you have a drinking problem. Them saying something to you about it and them recognizing you have a problem are two very different issues. But you keep it up and it progresses, because addiction is a progressive disease. They will say something about it eventually, and that's if they're nice to you. They may just flat out fire you before you get to that point. And then the next one is, have you ever lost a job because of your drinking? Have you ever neglected your obligations, family, or work for 2 or more days in a row because of your drinking? And so we covered that before. Again, you're missing those obligations, those life obligations, those things in our lives that make our life full. You're missing those things. Do you drink before noon fairly often? And I'm not talking about the occasional special event or wedding that you went to, or there's culturally there's something that you have to go to and you have a drink before noon. I'm talking about somebody that has to, and oftentimes what happens is people have to drink before noon, and that because they have to quell their nerves. They're suffering from delirium tremens, shaking, and things like that. And that's why people start to drink earlier and earlier and earlier. If you're wondering why people do that, that's why, because they are starting to withdraw from alcohol, which can be dangerous and it's very uncomfortable. So people start drinking earlier in order to quell that. Then you get into the physical side, and that is, have you ever been told that you have liver trouble, such as cirrhosis? Cirrhosis of the liver, very, very much connected to alcoholism. After heavy drinking, have you ever had delirium tremens or shaking, visual or auditory hearing hallucinations? That's a sign that you're going through alcohol withdrawal, and you're doing that because you're alcohol dependent. Have you ever gone to anyone for help about your drinking? Again, normal social drinkers don't do that. Have you ever been hospitalized because of drinking? That's in the same vein. Has your drinking ever resulted in being hospitalized in a psychiatric ward? In a psychiatric ward. There's a phrase in AA where people talk about this, that if you keep drinking, you'll end up jails, institutions, and then finally death. Jails, institutions, and finally death. And if somebody has put you into a psychiatric ward because of your drinking, then that's a big clue. And I tell you, I actually, it's amazing how deceptive alcoholism can be with people, because I've taken a number of people to psychiatric hospitals, and then they come out of the hospital and still look me in the eye and say that they don't have a problem. Remember, this is a disease of the brain as well, and this is the only disease that we know of that actually tells you that you don't have it. And I think that when you get to that point, then that's really a sign that alcohol has really taken over your life, and you can't see what's going on. Have you ever gone to any doctor, social worker, clergyman, or mental health clinic for help with any emotional problem in which drinking was part of the problem? So you sought out counseling. Have you been arrested more than once for driving under the influence of alcohol? And then finally, have you ever been arrested or detained by an official for a few hours because of other behavior while drinking? And so those are the questions. I want to talk a little bit more about that. And, as you know, we have a new sponsor, and I really want to talk to you about them, because, this episode is sponsored by FHE Health. And FHE Health has been providing life-changing behavioral health services for more than 20 years. They treat substance abuse and mental health disorders in an individualized and comprehensive approach, recognizing the specialized treatment needs of the first responder community, they've created Shatterproof, a dedicated program for law enforcement, fire rescue, and similar communities to receive treatment among peers. They're experienced in providing privacy and working with unions for employment. FHE Health is committed to providing the best care experience for patients, for their families, and for our community. Learn more at FHEHealth.com. That's FHEHealth.com. And they're a really good group of people, and they can help you in any way that you need. So, guys, I've been going through the MAST test, and those are questions that you can ask yourself. Now, what's interesting is if you score more than a 6 on that, a point scale of 6, then that means that you need to seek out some sort of treatment or counseling. And that's not real high. Now, again, if you are out there and you are wondering whether you need help, the simple answer is you need help. If you have to ask that question. I want you to really think about your relationship with alcohol or any other substance, because I could put in prescription drugs, illegal drugs, marijuana. Yes, I said marijuana, even though people are moving to legalize this all over the country. But I'm going to tell you there's a lot of people in treatment centers due to their use of marijuana. And I want you to ask yourself, why am I listening to this podcast? Why am I thinking about this? Why is this a question? Why am I struggling with this? If you are struggling with it, then what you are doing is something that is starting to come into your life and take over your life. And if you keep going with the progression of addiction, it will, in fact, eventually take your life. Now, the bonus with addiction is that before it takes your life, it will remove everything, everyone that you hold dear, everything and everyone that you hold dear, then it will take your life. Now, this is the disease that actually can be put into remission, 100% guaranteed it can be put into remission if you follow certain steps and certain recommendations. You can put addiction into remission, but it begins with complete and total abstinence. And you might think, well, that's frightening. I can't do that. I can't go through life without drinking or the drugs that I have. I can't do that. Well, the fact is that you can. And a lot of people do. I do that. And your life will get not 100% better. It will get 1,000% better. And I guarantee you that. So the reason why I went through this exercise today is because I was asked this question again this weekend. And I'm asked this question quite a bit. Do I have a drinking problem? Do I have a drug problem? Well, these questions that I just went through, I think, are really a simple answer to that. And it begins with, why is this a concern of yours? And if it's a concern of yours or somebody close to you, then it's something that you need to take a very serious look at and really start to consult with people that know what they're talking about and have walked the same walk that you have walked, had that same journey, and found a way to get out of the dark depths that they got into, because it is possible. Hence the name of this entire podcast, which is Recovery is Possible, because it is possible. And so this episode's been sponsored by FHE Health again. According to SAMHSA, first responders are 30% more likely to develop behavioral health conditions like PTSD. FHE Health specializes in getting first responders better and cleared for duty. Find out more at FHEHealth.com. That's FHEHealth.com. And again, guys, this podcast is brought to you is a way to really serve the community and help the people that really need the help that's out there, also help the family and loved ones. And I don't represent any group, even though I talk about groups here. And what I mean by not representing groups, I mean AA or Minnesota Method or Smart Recovery or any other group, Al-Anon or others. Those groups come up, we talk about them, but we really talk about all of the groups and all the groups that can help you. And if any one of these groups helps you, then fantastic. Then follow that method. I'm just talking about very different theories, and part of my job is to educate you on what is out there and what's available to you. So we don't represent any of these groups. My only purpose in giving this information is to share with you what I've done, because it's helped me and maybe it's going to help you too. So if I've said something that doesn't apply to you or you don't agree with, then just discard it, but try to use something that you can walk away with that is helpful. So with that, please visit my Facebook page, which is Recovery is Possible, and our website, which is VanMeterWellnessSolutions.com. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a topic that you're interested in hearing. I'd love to hear more from you. And so take care, guys, and I will see you next time.